If you want to actually make a difference, if you want to actually educate people on Leave No Trace, the last thing you should be doing is... So hiking and backpacking have been increasing in popularity pretty steadily over the years, and then 2020 happened and the government decided it would shut down restaurants, bars, playgrounds, beaches, movie theaters, just about everything except for the mountains. I mean, I guess they did try to do that too in some places. But as a result of all this COVID stuff, obviously more people than ever before this year, 2020, have been getting into hiking and backpacking, and I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I could do a whole other video on that discussion. And if there's more beginners on the trail, unfortunately, that also means that people are going to be making more beginner mistakes, which is another way of saying there is trending behavior in the backpacking community that is not so good. So today I'm going to be talking about a number of different trends that I've noticed in the backpacking community, most of which are Leave No Trace violations that need to stop right now. And I don't want to just blame all of this on the beginner hikers, so make sure you watch until the end of the video because the final trend I'm going to analyze today is actually not happening among the beginner hikers, but rather the gatekeepers, aka your favorite influencers. I'm joking, kind of, in regards to shaming and just generally being really nasty about how much better people they are because they take Leave No Trace so much more seriously than everybody else. It's this whole thing. I'll explain it at the end of the video, so make sure you watch till the end. But first, I'm gonna start with a few trends. Honestly, it might be a bit of a stretch to call all of these trends, but they're definitely just behaviors, I guess. Many of them violate Leave No Trace. One quick point before I get into item number one. I guarantee that every single hiker watching this video right now, beginner, expert, does not matter, has violated Leave No Trace at some point. And the reason I'm saying this is because we should all aspire to follow Leave No Trace, but we shouldn't act all high and mighty about it either. So if you have exhibited any of the behaviors I'm gonna talk about today, if you have followed any of these trends I'm gonna talk about today, just know that I'm not here to just like shit on you. I understand mistakes happen. And anyways, let's get into trend or behavior number one. This trend is not planning properly. This is a really important part of Leave No Trace. And let me be clear, I'm not talking about like, oh, I didn't pick the most scenic campsite, like I didn't plan correctly. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who leave essential items at home and have to be rescued as a result. I'm talking about the people who end up having to violate other Leave No Trace rules because they didn't plan ahead. An example of that would be maybe you don't bring a stove or a cook system because you assume you can just cook over the fire. You get to a campsite where it turns out you're not supposed to make fires. Next thing you know, you're choosing between building a fire anyways and violating that rule, or just eating your pasta or whatever the f you brought cold, and it's probably gonna taste like shit. Although to be honest, it's probably gonna taste like shit anyway because it's backpacking food and most of it sucks. This is probably an exaggeration, but I feel like almost every single week I see articles about hikers getting rescued in various places. Pretty often here in the Northeast and like the Adirondacks or the White Mountains, for instance. A lot of the time people don't plan properly. The hike takes way longer than they think it will, and they didn't bring a headlamp, so it gets dark and they're like, shit, their phone runs out of battery, that's their last light source, and there's nothing they can do. They end up having to call for rescue. Another big one is people just getting lost because they don't bring a map. Oh my god, this kills me. Again, I'm not trying to like just shame people for this stuff, but seriously folks, please bring a map on your hike, a actual paper map, because sometimes the apps you're using are gonna be wrong, and more likely your phone could run out of battery or your phone could break. I almost broke my phone on the last hike that I did. I even met a hiker one time who was using Google Maps as their primary navigation source. Like they didn't. Please, please, please start planning ahead, preparing. This trend of just like reading an article online and be like, oh, I'll do that hike, and then you just download the article or something like that and go on the hike. Like that needs to stop. People gotta be more prepared. You gotta take the mountain seriously, please. The second thing I want to mention here is cutting switchbacks. I haven't really hiked very much outside of the northeastern United States, so I don't know how it is in other places, but on the rare occasion that the people who build the trails actually decided to build a fucking switchback for once, very often you will see like a little herd path that just kind of cuts off the switchback, right? On the surface it makes sense, it's just a little bit shorter, a little bit easier. You're like, why go around all these friggin' switchbacks when you can just boop, go right down the middle? But don't do that. Don't do that, folks. I'm not sure of the exact like environmental impact on this. I do know that it's just ugly and kind of annoying to see like 3 different paths like you could take to get down. And unfortunately, hikers who don't really know any better will come by and they'll see this shorter path and then they'll just take that. Not because they like want to contribute to trail erosion or anything like that, but just because they don't really know better. So it's just like a never-ending cycle. It just keeps on happening. Don't cut switchbacks. Don't do it.
Yeah, I'm still gonna do it.
The next thing I want to say is about food storage. Please store your food properly when you're hiking in bear country. I'll be honest, I was not good about this for a lot of my time hiking. I spent most of my like formative hiking years hiking in areas where bears weren't really much of an issue, and as a result, I never really hung my food. When I was preparing for the Appalachian Trail, I very quickly learned that there are many campsites, especially on the southern part of the Appalachian Trail, that have really, really bad bear problems because people aren't storing their food properly. And again, like, I get it. It's the end of a long day. The last thing you want to do is like leave the comfort of your campsite to go look for a branch and then try to throw a freaking rock. Like, it's a pain in the ass. Like, I totally understand that, but it's a necessary pain in the ass. And I will say, once you practice bear, I almost said bear banging. Once you practice bear hanging enough, you will get better at it. But remember, a fed bear is a dead bear. I know most of you guys know this stuff, but it never hurts to hear it again from time to time. This next one, protein bar wrappers or like candy bar wrappers, things like that. I feel like most people who go out hiking understand that you should not leave trash along the trail. However, sometimes people are kind of careless with their wrappers, particularly the little corner that you tear off when you first open the protein bar. And this one's pretty tough because like you're hungry, maybe like the weather's bad or something, you just like rip it off, start eating, and you don't realize that you actually drop it. I mean, honestly, I've probably done this before. Please try to be mindful of the very small, easy to lose trash items that you're carrying. Because honestly, I think the most common piece of trash that I find on the trail, and I'd be curious to know if a lot of you guys agree with this, is like those little pieces of the protein bar wrapper that somebody just missed. Again, I feel like it's kind of a stretch to call this a trend because it's not like this is some new behavior that's never happened before. But this next one, washing dishes in a water source. So again, this isn't like a trend, I'll be honest. I kind of got you with the clickbait there, sorry. Not gonna lie, I was guilty of this pretty hardcore when I first started hiking. I did not realize that it was something that probably shouldn't have been done. So I used to like take my pot when I was done eating and like dunk it in the water source and like clean it out. Like, I know I suck, like it's bad, so please don't do that. What you're supposed to do, according to the Leave No Trace website, is to, first of all, make sure you eat all of the food in your pot. Like, don't have like chunks of food left. Like, I know sometimes it can be hard to finish, so if you can't eat it all, you gotta scoop what's left into your trash bag and pack it out. Once you get all the food scraps out of your pot, to clean it, you're just gonna put a little bit of water in it, and then what I like to do is I just take my hand, like no soap, no sponges, nothing like that. I just take my hand and just, do that shit, like get it all clean. It's pretty gross, I know, but I'm kind of a scumbag, so I don't care. And then you go a good distance away from any water sources, any campsites, any other people. Just go off into the middle of the woods. Don't get lost, but broadcast the water. Just fling that shit so that you're not gonna concentrate any of the tiny little food scraps or water or whatever's left in one spot. Okay, so this last thing, which is actually a trend, is don't be an elitist when it comes to Leave No Trace. So this is like the opposite, right? Like I just said a lot of things that some of the beginner hikers might not have thought about. This is for the more experienced hikers. This is for the people who live and breathe Leave No Trace. If you want to actually make a difference, if you want to actually educate people on Leave No Trace, the last thing you should be doing is shaming, hating, and calling people out. And I'm not like calling out anybody specifically here because most hikers, even the influencers I made the joke about at the beginning, are really good about this. I feel like there's been so many times on the Facebook groups, which I am a part of way too many, somebody will like take a photo of somebody violating Leave No Trace and then they'll post it on the Facebook group and be like, oh my god, I can't believe somebody did this. Obviously that's a bit of an exaggeration, but actually not really. I've literally seen this before. The irony of me standing here complaining about people who complain is not lost on me, by the way. I mean, think about it. Let's say some guy goes out for his first backpacking trip ever. He stops at camp early and he's like, okay, I'm gonna build a fire because that's what people do when they're hiking sometimes. So he goes and makes a big fire pit that he probably shouldn't have made. Maybe he even does something as awful, oh my god, as cutting down a tree, which again, you obviously you shouldn't do. You should use dead and down firewood. When you're making a fire, you shouldn't be building new fire pits. Like, don't do that. But let's say he does it anyway, because he just doesn't know that these are things you shouldn't do, and he's out camping, so he's like, screw it, I'm gonna build a fire. That's not an unreasonable thing to want to do if you just don't know better. He does it, he has a good time, he takes a couple pictures, and when he gets back, he puts them on Facebook. And then all of a sudden, he gets a bunch of angry people commenting like, oh my god, you shouldn't be cutting down trees and building fire pits. And again, those people are right about the leave no trace concepts, but if you just react so negatively like that and just so hatefully, do you think that guy's really gonna see all those comments and be like, oh yeah, you know what, they're completely right? Of course not. He's not gonna learn a damn thing. The only thing he's gonna do is just be like, and to be honest with you, he's probably not going to recognize the importance of leave no trace as a result. He's just gonna run the other way from all these people and be like, oh, screw them, they're just a bunch of nasty people. What they're saying must not matter at all. So please just be considerate. Educate people, don't shame them, and don't let leave no trace violations just like ruin your hiking experience. Again, I feel like sometimes I see posts on Facebook where someone will see some leave no trace violation and they'll make a post just like complaining so much and just like being so dramatic about it, and it makes it sound like it just completely ruined their hike. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I've seen lots of leave no trace violations in the thousands of miles I've hiked, and never once has it ever like ruined my hike, you know? Now, obviously I wish those things hadn't happened, and I think that when I see them, but it doesn't ruin my day, it doesn't ruin my hike, so let's just be more positive about all these things. Let's educate folks, and let's just have a good time. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, and make sure you check out my podcast, Trail Tales, if you want to hear some long-form conversations between experienced hikers and probably more profanity than I should do. That's all, folks. I'm gonna go make a really flashy, red, cringy, annoying thumbnail now.